You've heard it said, health is wealth, so enrich your life with the Healthy Home Hour, brought to you by the Healthy Home Market every Sunday, 9 to 10 a.m. Know what's new and classic for health and wellness. Meet the local and national experts. Live God's plan to thrive, not just survive. I'm your host, Holly Adams, and welcome to the Healthy Home Hour. Morning all, glad you're here this Healthy Home Hour for a new take on something that's as American as hot dogs and apple pie. I mean, today we're talking about coffee. Have you got a cup poured already? I bet you do this morning at 9 on Sunday. You know, today we're going to talk about maybe you're drinking one, in fact. You must be of one of 6 different roasting styles. And then there's the different species of the coffee beans themselves. I mean, coffee really has become an art. Just ask an Italian or someone from France or Seattle, USA, or Matt Yarmey, founder of Pure Intentions Coffee of Charlotte. Matt's been a big part of putting Charlotte on the map for coffee connoisseurs. Why, there is even a Queen City coffee crawl, and it's not only that it's rich and tasty, but coffee has health benefits, particularly for your brain. And that's good for everybody, of course. So stay with us. Find out how to get the coffee you love and up your game this Healthy Home Hour. But first, some news about what's up in the community room in the Community Wellness Center behind the Plaza Midwood store, which is near the Family Dollar and Bistro Le Bon at 1330 Central Avenue. This week, we've got all kinds of massage happening in the store. You can help yourself to, it's $1 a minute with Brenda. And also there is, of course, Alicia Ashley doing Aqua Chi Detox foot baths. That's $35 a session, lasts about a half an hour, and detoxes your body, your liver, and your kidneys of, maybe some of the damage you've been doing to it during the week. So there's a lot happening. Check it out at healthyhomemkt.com. That's healthyhomemkt.com. So, Matt, thanks for being here.
Good morning, Holly. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You know, your company, Pure Intentions, has kind of been conquering the coffee world around Charlotte. I know that you started at Okra Yoga. You're right there in their coffee and tea bar. And, of course, we've got Pure Intentions at the Healthy Home Market in Plaza Midwood. And we have it by the pound. And I know you're in other stores, and your company has grown, well, so much since I met you 3 years ago already.
You really have.
Amazing. What are you doing that's different from other coffee companies? What's the surge of growth behind Pure Intentions?
I think for me personally, I have to look at where we started to really see where we are now. And it really started with a vision and a passion to do something that I really cared about and wanted my community members to also care about with me. So for me, it wasn't about selling a product. It was about selling a relationship or that emotional connection with something that we all take part in every day. We all have our own coffee ritual, and it might be completely different from one person to the next, but we all have something that we enjoy about it. And that's what I really wanted to connect with people on that level of, being a part of the community that was in such a growth mode at the time. Right. Coffee to me was my tool or my mechanism of participating in that growth. And I think people really understood that and they connected with it. And I wasn't trying to do something that was only for a certain segment of the population. This is specialty coffee for everybody.
So it sounds like, you're talking about relationship and connecting and emotional. Coffee is really more than just a drink.
It really is. Again, it's not about a brown liquid that has caffeine in it, although I know that's the reason that many of us enjoy it.
Right.
But it's about that personal interaction when you sit down with your friends or your family and you share a cup of coffee and share stories. And that really goes back to the history of coffee. Throughout the course of time, we've seen different cultures and different societies enjoy coffee for that very purpose, bringing people together and allowing them to invigorate their senses and invigorate their conversations. It's been a positive in some societies and a negative in others. If you think about creating the revolutions, and that's actually why England is a tea-based society and has only recently been coming back around to specialty coffee. So there's coffee houses of legend are really being appreciated today as well.
Where did the whole culture of coffee really start?
Well, coffee as an agricultural product was born out of Ethiopia and has migrated through the Middle East and into Indonesia, and via the Dutch, it came across the Atlantic to the Dutch West Indies. And so that from there, it kind of migrated its way into Latin America and South America because of the climate was so appropriate for growing it. And, at the time they had selected it as a cash crop. So once you move down that path, and it's kind of hard to go back at that point. But, being such a globally consumed product, it begs for some kind of segmentation. So you can look at, the Maxwell houses all the way up to, the uber specialty stuff that's coming, as you mentioned, Seattle and Portland, that are creating artisan, small batch, single origin coffees that will just, blow the socks off any of the freeze dried stuff you get in the jar. So, people can create cultures out of anything. It's like, wine or food. You can create cultures out of things that you're passionate about. So when you get enough people together that are passionate about something, it kind of, the culture creates itself almost.
So you've been a part of the coffee crawl that I mentioned earlier at the top of the hour.
We have.
And tell us about that a little bit. How do you get involved with that? How do you find out about it?
Yeah, so that was actually the brainchild of Good Eats and Meats, a culinary organization here in Charlotte that pushes for better education about high quality food and beverage consumption for our Charlotte community. So we were approached to participate in the coffee crawl, and the idea was awareness and education. So I think a lot of Charlotteans aren't really aware that there's so much craft coffee going on. I mean, craft beer is in everybody's face.
Yes.
And, restaurateurs are starting to gain more and more notoriety. But coffee has been under the radar. So this gentleman decided to push that agenda, and a lot of people got on board with it. We participated through one of our retailers at the time by doing a coffee flight. So we had light roast all the way to dark roast, 4 different types of coffee with a little 2-ounce sample of each. And just like you would get with a beer flight, there was a piece of paper with descriptors, and people really seemed to enjoy it. Not only because hopefully it was great coffee, but because very few times do you get the opportunity to taste comparatively coffees alongside you. Usually you're rushing out the door in the morning, you get a cup, you chug it, and then maybe you have another one in the afternoon, or you have an espresso that's got, 9 parts milk, 1 part espresso.
Right.
This was an opportunity for people to clearly identify characteristics in coffee alongside one another that they enjoyed or didn't enjoy. And that was the main feedback that we received. That's
so interesting, because I didn't realize, that there's different roasts, but in preparing for today, I discovered that there's actually 6 roasts. And you have, at the Healthy Home Market, we've got the Full City, Pure Intentions, and we have the Vienna roast. Tease it out for us a little bit. What's the difference up and down, the roasting?
Yeah, so that's a pretty interesting spectrum if you really get into it. It's kind of like... it's kind of like a model of a car. You can kind of like describe it however you want. A certain manufacturer will start to describe things in a certain way, but really all we're saying so you referred to the, city plus, full city plus, Vienna, etc. That's just like a fancier way of saying light, medium, and dark. Somebody one day in the beginning of specialty coffee decided that they needed a fancier name for it, or at least more granularity in light to dark. So they came up with terminology, and there's actually more than 6. It goes farther down both sides of that spectrum to the point where it's barely roasted, to the point all the way to the other end where it's almost on fire, pretty much. So it's a mechanism for describing how long the coffee is actually in the roasting machine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all about the roasting, really.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. But it doesn't necessarily, one of the biggest misconceptions that I've been having to battle over the course of my time as a roaster is what is light versus dark. people just immediately assume through the course of, having been marketed to by major manufacturers for so long that light roast coffee is weak or is lower in body or is lower in flavor. It's sort of that easy drinking afternoon coffee, and dark is like really bold and you can stand a spoon up in this coffee and, oh yeah, I want the bold stuff. I want that, that really strong stuff. And that's really a misconception. You can roast coffee. Coffee in its raw form has a potential. It has a flavor potential. And whether you roast it light or dark is really just the roaster's artistic effort to bring out certain flavor potential in that coffee. So I have my current Panama offering, my Panamanian, has a lot of dark roast flavor profiles in it, even though it's one of our lightest roasts, just because that's the way that when I make my adjustments during the roast, it really brings to the forefront a lot of those caramel tones and chocolate tones and mutes some of that acidity so that you get a more full-bodied approach to the coffee, even though it's a light roast.
That's interesting. So that rich flavor isn't necessarily about the roasting. It's more about the bean and the combination, or it's the combination
of the two. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you really are an artist.
Well, that's one of the whole reasons I fell in love with roasting in the first place. Is it's an incredible mixture of art and science. You have to know the science behind it to create consistency, but if you don't have any art, it's just going to fall flat. You're going to create the same thing in all of your offerings, and there's not going to be any creativity. That's the fun part, is having that creativity.
Right. That's fascinating. It really is a lot like beer or wine or any of these crops that you can really have a relationship with, and
definitely
bring out the best, like any good relationship, right?
Exactly right. That's all we're trying to do is give somebody a product that when they consume it, they feel connected to it. Mm-hmm. I can remember back to what got me into this in the first place, when I would wake up in the morning and just kind of be stumbling around and, kind of that morning haze. And, you sit down on the couch with that first cup of coffee and you can smell the aromas and you can feel the heat of the cup. And it kind of enlivens your whole system. And that's one person's take on it, but that's what I wanted to create for everybody. I wanted everybody to have that same connection to that product.
Mm-hmm. Great way to start the day.
It is.
It really is, to just get you ramped up and ready to go, but kind of cool at the same time. We're going to get into some more details about it. I want to hear more about some of the actual species of the coffee, various beans, and how you get it. And so we'll be right back. Stay with us, folks. You're listening to the Healthy Home Hour with Matt Yarmey of That's Pure Intentions, right here on Streets 103.3, Charlotte's new hip-hop station. Are you living your dream? Lots of us aren't, because we don't have a plan. All our dreams need the right plan. At the Charlotte Health Center, get a customized plan to lay down your pain and fatigue and get on your game. Feel the love and skill of Dr. Matt McAleese, chiropractor and founder of the Charlotte Health Center. Align your spine with Dr. Matt. He's got 5 essentials for a victorious life. Experience the energy, the clarity, and creativity of your body and brain when the power's on. The Charlotte Health Center is the largest private and pediatric chiropractic clinic in the QC. Dr. Matt has helped Olympians, celebrities, moms, and kids with exceptional care and concern. Call 704-780-0166. That's 704-780-0166 or charlottehealthcenter.com. Come on, live your dreams.
Novocaine, baby, baby. Novocaine, baby.
Hey, welcome back. You're listening to the Healthy Home Hour, sponsored by the Healthy Home Market. In and around Charlotte, 2 stores in Charlotte, 1 store in Davidson. I'm Holly Adams, your host, and we're here with Matt Yarmey of Pure Intentions Coffee. And boy, before the break, you were filling us in on roasting and how it really is kind of an artistic relationship with the various beans. Mm-hmm. I wondered if you'd talk about the beans, the different species, because you hear about so many different ones. Cafe Arrabbiata and I mean, what are there, about 12, 15 different strains?
Well, so commercially, we're talking mostly about Coffea arabica and Coffea canephora are the two main types of coffee that are commercially produced. Within each of those, there are a number of different varieties. So that's when you really start talking about the specific flavor profile potential and the farming capacity that each bean has. So each variety will have a different yield. So the per plant yield will be different based on the variety. The quality will be different based on the variety. Its disease resistance will be different based on the variety. So as a farmer, you really have to select and balance, what your land can handle and the type of yield you're trying to get versus the quality. So as you might imagine, the higher the yield, the lower the quality. So the more fruit is being created, the lower quality each of those pieces of fruit will have.
That's interesting. It's kind of, again, like wine.
It's very much like wine. So that's actually why it thrives in the environments that it does. They grow very high altitudes with very wide ranges of temperature between morning and night. So the idea being you want to stress the plant just like a vine, creating grapes for wine. You want to stress it so that it packs all of that nutrition into its fruit and therefore creating a higher density, higher nutritional content fruit, which ends up being, as us as human beings, we perceive that as higher quality.
That's interesting. So is there sort of a pruning effect that they do to the bush, much like they do to grapevines?
They do. So every year they will cut the coffee shrub back and it will grow a new sprout. So the really interesting thing, you can actually look this up on the internet. They have pictures of really, really old farms in Colombia where the base of the plant, the stump of the plant, is 3 feet in diameter because it's been cut back so many times, and there's just one little tiny sprout that's coming up off the side where the actual flowering and fruiting is happening. But that, again, over the course of time, they feel like a coffee plant has a yield that will last for however many years. And eventually they perceive that the yield is no longer of certain quality and they'll replant.
It's so interesting how these commodities, these products, these agricultural products, they've really been, finely honed for so many centuries that there's really, and now there's a resurfacing of artisanal, beautiful ways of handling food. I read somewhere that in about the late 1800s, roasting actually was sort of taken over by all the big companies and such as Maxwell House and Folgers, and that people actually did their own roasting.
Right, that's 100% true. There used to be a morning routine where the lady of the household would excuse herself to the patio and start a fire, and in a steel or iron sort of tray, she would physically roast the coffee for the family's consumption that morning. She would roast it, cool it down, grind it up, and brew the coffee. And that, was a very, again, going back to the coffee routine that we were talking about earlier, that was a very, family-oriented process that they went through every day. That was, again, with the Industrial Revolution, the advent of coffee houses, that was taken out of the home and put into cities and the city centers. And that's actually one of the main reasons that we are where we are today. When I talk about education, and the reason that we need so much education in coffee is that the process was taken away from the individual,
right,
and put in the hands of these companies who created this sort of veil of mystery. If you walk up to anybody on the street with a bag of roasted coffee and ask them to describe the process that it takes to get to them in that form, most of the time nobody has any idea.
That's right. I certainly didn't until we were talking about it today.
Right.
So what you're really doing is you've actually brought that back from the past and expanded on it and perfected it in some way. Where do you get the roasters, and how does that, I'm wondering, even before the roasting process, where do the beans come from? And you mentioned Panama earlier.
Right. So I source coffee from all over the world through distributors that have direct relationships with the farmers. So a roaster of my size, I can't really afford to go directly to the farms and buy 30,000 pounds of beans at a time and work with U.S. Customs. So there are distributors that act as the middle person, and they have the relationships and ensure that the quality of the coffee that they're bringing into the country is of a certain level. So I know that if I work with X distributor who has a certain reputation for their coffee, that regardless of what I buy out of their product line, they are going to have sustainably produced coffee that's of a certain level of quality, whether it's organic or fair trade or not. I mean, we have coffee that's a combination of both of those certifications, but we also have coffee that's from extremely small cooperatives. The one that we actually just tapped out of was a Costa Rican that you carried at Healthy Home Market on Central Avenue for a while. And that one was a really, really small group of producers in San Pablo that couldn't afford to have the USDA organic certification. But through the distributor's relationship with them, they had confidence that their farming operations were sound and environmentally friendly, and they were producing this coffee with a focus towards detail in the land.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That really is.
And I'm really lucky to have the relationship with a distributor like that I can have confidence in.
Absolutely. Because I imagine it being a commodity, there are times where, the relationship is very important, because if you don't have a good relationship, you could get ripped off. Very
easily. Yep. You don't know what you're getting, and once it's in your possession, it's yours to deal with. So it's very difficult. The scalability factor is another challenge in selecting product. You can roast samples and we can taste test, but it's an agricultural product. We were talking about that earlier. It's a plant that's grown, and the chance that there's a variance between what you're sampling and what you actually get when you multiply that by 1,000 or more, it's a lot of risk. So having that relationship, and that goes down the chain too. My customers want to know that what they're getting, the bags on your shelves you want to have confidence that I'm doing my job correctly and that you're getting a high quality product that you have confidence in selling to your customers.
Absolutely. There's a constancy or consistency aspect to it. They want to know when they get Pure Intentions, it tastes like the Pure Intentions they had the last time.
Right.
Because that's why they're getting it.
It's a chain of integrity, really. And having that chain from the farm all the way to when you brew it in your coffee maker in the morning, that's what I care about. That's what keeps me up at night, and that's why that's what I'm really passionate about providing.
That is really exciting to hear that, because that's what we're trying to do at the Healthy Home Market too, is maintain integrity and get products that people can feel safe about and they can enjoy. And you know how it is when something is well made, it really does taste better.
Oh yeah,
there's no doubt about it.
There's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. I before we move on to some more nutritional kinds of things about coffee, I'm wondering about, do you just get these beans, they come right off the bush and they dry them and they make their way to your place, or is there some process that the farmers go through to make the beans ready for you, the roaster?
Oh man, Holly, how much of the hour do we have left? So I'll keep it as high level as I can. There are many different processes that happen to the fruit itself. So coffee starts as a fruit of a shrub. And
that's that red fruit that you see in pictures sometimes. Yeah.
Exactly right. Mm-hmm. So the coffee bean itself is really two sides of the seed inside that fruit. And there's various layers of skin and pectin, and then there's the outer layer of the fruit itself. So really the job of the farmer is to select ripe beans through the course of the harvest season, pick only the ripe beans, and then process those beans, process the fruit to extract the beans in a certain way. And the way that the farmer chooses to process the beans actually has a very profound effect on the flavor potential. So whether they use a very water-intensive process, or whether they use a very sun-intensive process, or a combination of the two, that has a very profound effect on the potential flavors in the coffee.
Do you have a preference for one or the other?
It's kind of like beer. You can be in a different mood for a different thing depending on the temperature outside and time of day. And there's a lot of recently natural processed coffee, which is a very sun-intensive process, have gained a lot of popularity. Anytime that you taste a coffee and you notice a lot of berry flavor, so blueberry or strawberry, that's most likely a natural processed coffee. the citric components are more likely to be a water heavy process. So if you taste something that's lemony or orange or grapefruit, most of the time that's going to be a washed coffee. So, really it just kind of depends on what you're in the mood for.
So that's in that processing that gets the skin off and the pectin off and winds up with a bean. And where is the seed in that process?
So the seed is on the inside, and that's really what you're trying to get all the other stuff off the seed so that you can then dry the seed and put it in the big burlap sacks and ship it off to folks like me. So what ends up happening in order to extract that, the fruit and the pectin from the outside of the seed, it actually undergoes fermentation, just like beer. Obviously different for different ends to that means,
right.
But so whether the fermentation happens in a big vat of water, so in Latin American countries, South American countries that have ready access to water, it's easy for them to put it in a big concrete vat and let it ferment in water. So the enzymes that are created sort of eat away at the connective tissues of the pectin and the seed and allow for easier extraction of the seed from the remainder. Whereas in some countries that are not as water friendly or water rich, they have created other types of processing methods where the beans, or the fruit rather, is laid on patios in the sun, elevated patios, and the fermentation process happens in the sun. So just right on the patio, the seeds are left in the fruit, and the enzymatic reactions there create different types of chemicals in the seed that allow for different flavor profiles.
So let me see if I get this right. So in other words, the seed is really the bean. So
Correct.
Coffee beans are really coffee seeds.
Correct.
That's fascinating.
Yep. And there's two seeds per fruit, and there's a mutation called a pea berry. So if you ever are looking at a coffee menu in a coffee house and it says pea berry, that means that comes from a fruit where only one seed was found on the inside, where the two sides of the seed had molded together.
And is that sort of a mutation, or is there a type of a species that does that?
Yeah, I think it's a mutation. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's a mutation that happens.
That's so cool. There's so much intricacy to it,
Yeah.
We're going to take just a short break, folks. I want you to know Matt brought in some cold brew coffee. We're here drinking some coffee and having a great time. This tastes really good, and it's not even over ice. It's just right out of the bottle.
Yep.
So stay with us. We're going to have a little something to drink, and we'll be right back on Streets 1033, your hip-hop station from Charlotte. Are you living your dream? Lots of us aren't, because we don't have a plan. All our dreams need the right plan. At the Charlotte Health Center, get a customized plan to lay down your pain and fatigue and get on your game. Feel the love and skill of Dr. Matt McAleese, chiropractor and founder of the Charlotte Health Center. Align your spine with Dr. Matt. He's got 5 essentials for a victorious life. Experience the energy, the clarity, and creativity of your body and brain when the power's on. The Charlotte Health Center is the largest private and pediatric chiropractic clinic in the QC. Dr. Matt has helped Olympians, celebrities, moms, and kids with exceptional care and concern. Call 704-780-0166. That's 704-780-0166 or charlottehealthcenter.com. Come on, live your dreams.
Novocaine, baby, baby. Novocaine, baby.
Welcome back. We're drinking some coffee here today. Cold brew coffee from Pure Intentions. I have Matt Yarmey here with us today talking about coffee, and some of the details are fascinating and how it really is like other specialty agricultural items like wine and beer. And you mentioned fermenting. I've actually heard that there's some coffees that have some kind of a fermenting process to them, that there's even a coffee that goes through a pig. And
The cat. So there's a coffee, it's called Kopi Luwak, that is digested by the civet cat in Indonesia, certain parts of Indonesia, and they believe that the digestive enzymes take out all of the bitterness from the coffee itself. And so they charge a super premium for that. We actually don't support that, really. It's turned into, I don't know if you've heard about the ducks that are being forced into making pate.
Foie gras.
Yeah,
Yes.
foie gras, yeah. So it's actually become something very similar to that, where there's farms that are capturing civet cats and force feeding them coffee like that. So coffee fruit like that. So we don't necessarily support that wholeheartedly.
Right. Absolutely. I can understand why. So the price seems to vary a lot from bean to bean because they're coming from all around the world. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, where do you think coffee grows most successfully around the planet?
Successful coffee growth is dependent on how you're defining success. So to a farmer whose singular goal is yield, I would say Brazil, because Brazil has huge plains of coffee farm that are more industrially farmed with machinery. They don't necessarily care quite as much about discerning ripe from unripe fruit. Mm-hmm. So the quality is not necessarily what it should be. And there's also that other type of coffee that we talked about originally, Coffea canefera, that's commonly referred to as Robusta, which is very disease resistant, produces an extremely high yield, and you can plant them pretty much on top of each other. So from a commodity perspective, that's a farmer's dream, but it just does not produce a great cup of coffee.
And is there more, that kind of coffee, is there more chemicals and pesticides used in something like that versus, you mentioned this wonderful farm from Costa Rica?
Right. So, again, the pesticides are kind of up to the farmer, I suppose. Mm-hmm. The more industrialized the coffee, definitely the more chemicals and pesticides you would perceive in them. We concentrate a lot on farms that are either organic, fair trade, or have farming methodologies that are more in line with what we're trying to do as a specialty artisan provider.
Well, it's cool because it seems like, well, yeah, you would do that because you're pure intentions.
Exactly. We have pure intentions, and we hope that our farmers do as well.
How did you come up with that name?
Well, it was actually born, so the name itself is more personally relevant, that has migrated into being relevant for our company now. But originally it was born out of a relatively stormy period in my life when I was redefining my own personal goals and what it means to me to have value and success and all those sort of higher level, things that we think about when we're laying in bed at night. Right. And, to me, the purest intention that I could have at that time was to be honest with myself and pursue something that I was passionate about and that I loved, and that brought me closer to my community. So that was my pure intention, was to not follow in the footsteps of what other people thought I should do, and do what made me happy.
So what were you doing before you got into coffee?
I was working in financial consulting and found this and just fell in love with it. And actually for the first year and a half, was roasting in my apartment, and then, migrated once we had experienced some success in the community, had migrated up to where we are now in a warehouse just north of the downtown area.
Nice. Up Tryon and 36th Street area up there? Yeah,
it's right between the NODA and University area. So it's where all that light rail construction's going on, yes. Unfortunately. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, but that's got to be tough to get in and out of there.
We're not the only ones that are growing, I'll tell you that. So
it's huge. There's a whole food incubation thing happening there, mm-hmm. with Lynn Caldwell from Atherton Market, and Charlotte Community Radio is over there, and mm-hmm. that's really growing tremendously. That's like the new hot spot, it seems mm-hmm. like. So You're right in it.
We're right there.
Very cool. You're always right there on
Trying
top
to be.
of it. I see. I'm wondering, how you got started with coffee. I mean, you were in finance, and you must have passed through Starbucks a lot.
I used to be a gold card carrying member of Starbucks multiple times per day, would seek it out. Yep. And the perception at the time was that was high quality coffee. And, I would seek it out for that. And now that my eyes have been opened a little bit to what really high quality coffee can be, the scales aren't even close.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much sugar and sweet and all these crazy flavors, and you couldn't tell if the coffee's any good or not with all that.
And think about the sheer volume that they have to put out. They're a corporation, and the main goal of a corporation is to have a consistent product. So for them to serve globally millions of customers and have a consistent product that's based on an agricultural source, I mean, the sheer magnitude of what they must do to create that consistency boggles my mind. But it's definitely not artisan, and it's definitely not, really high quality. They might start with something that's high quality, but there's no individuality in it.
Would they be using the Robusto, say, from Brazil, probably?
No, so Arabica is generally what most, even Starbucks will use Arabica. Robusta you'll see mostly in freeze-dried or those bricks of coffee that you see on the shelf. That's Robusta.
It's interesting. We talk a lot about health here and how the choices that people make affect their health. And there's evidence now that coffee actually makes you smarter, at least temporarily.
Right.
And
I think we all feel that in the morning after we have our first cup.
Right. There's just the clarity that comes, and a more of a mission kind of a feel. You're on target and you're in process after you've had your cup of coffee. In fact, my grandmother used to get up every day and say, "Well, don't ask me to do anything until I've had my smart cup." And but they're talking about how it actually affects mood, memory, reaction time, cognitive function, that it's actually helping the neurons fire up in your brain. What have you noticed, given all the coffee that you drink? I mean, is there ever a time where maybe there's too much coffee, or you shouldn't drink after a certain point?
Well,
in the day,
I think it's similar to consumption of anything else. Everybody is going to be different. Personally, I think it's funny. People will approach me and go, "Oh man, you must drink 10 cups of coffee a day."
Yeah.
And it's really not like that. I do love coffee, and there are some days when I have a lot of tastings going on, or I'm trying to dial in a specific roast and I'm tasting constantly throughout the day, where by the end, my hand is shaking and I'm just going, "Okay, that's the last one. I probably need to calm it down here for a minute." But generally I have experienced that anywhere between 2 and 4 cups of coffee a day that's the sweet spot, because you're getting the pickup that you need and you're not over caffeinating yourself, or you're not over consuming. My mom used to always tell me moderation is key. So moderation in anything is really the name of the game, and I try and hold that to be true, even though coffee is my life. Right,
but too much of a good thing is maybe not.
You don't
really
want to burn yourself out on it.
Right, exactly. It's amazing. There is some evidence out there. There's some various articles and medical journals that have come out saying that there's actually a positive effect on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's as a result of drinking coffee, and also on diabetes. Because
I can believe it.
Diabetes is, unfortunately, we're all impacted by diabetes at this point, either our own struggle with type 2 in particular, I'm thinking, or someone that we know. Diabetes has increased up, I think it's up to like 300 million people around the world additionally in the last 20 years now have type 2 diabetes. But Dr. Oz came out like 3-4 years ago and said how green coffee beans really helps not only with these other issues but also with weight loss. And can you tell us about that a little bit? How? Because everybody wants to know how to lose weight.
Yeah. So I think the whole deal with green coffee is, he was saying that it's higher in antioxidants, which is great, and that some of the chemicals that are in green coffee that are not present in roasted coffee were beneficial. So I think what he was trying to say is, okay, well, yeah, we all drink coffee, that's fine, but what else can we extract out of this product that would be beneficial to us? So green coffee in its raw form is actually not consumable. You can't just take a piece of green coffee and eat it. But what he was saying is, let's create some extracts. So after that was made, you've started seeing the flood in the market of green coffee extract. And all this stuff, where it was like, I saw there was like a lotion that had green coffee in it.
Right. Good for cellulite.
Exactly. And so there's definitely caffeine in there, and caffeine does exactly, what we would assume it does in its roasted form as well. So I can definitely see there being some good at the very least, some antioxidant benefits to the green coffee extracts that came out.
Yeah. There's even some talk about how coffee is protective in some way for the liver, and that it can actually, help with certain liver disorders, and it lowers liver cancer risk. and that it can actually help with the scarring of the liver. I've read.
Wow.
Neither one of us are MDs, but it's fascinating to read about it. And here's this commodity that's been around for centuries, and they're discovering that it's having a good impact on the liver for people who have overdone it with alcohol.
Wow.
And so it's I guess coffee really is a good thing to have, like the morning after.
I was going to say that explains a lot of Sunday mornings.
Years ago, and people still do it. There's a thing called the Master Cleanse, where you do the lemon and the maple syrup and the cayenne, and you mix it all up in a big gallon thing of clean water, and you just drink that for a while, and you're losing weight and detoxing your body.
Right.
And then there's another piece to that, which is actually a coffee enema.
Oh, wow.
Did you know about that?
I did not know about that.
Okay. Well, apparently in doing that process, it opens up the portal vein and helps to flush out the liver. So there's quite a lot going on with the liver and coffee.
I could definitely see that working, though.
Yeah.
I think coffee in general has an invigorating effect on human beings, for many different reasons. But that, it makes sense.
Well, it's very interesting how some of these food products, these densely nutritive food products, can assist our bodies in what they do naturally, because we really are healing machines. We're built to heal if we just give the body what it needs and take away some of the bad stuff.
Well, I think that's probably one of the reasons that coffee is working out so well as a commodity, just through the course of time, is that humans have a great reaction to it in the first place. It has a great mixture of different compounds in it that, roasting actually changes all of the compounds within green coffee to be water soluble. So they're all insoluble. Through the roasting process, it caramelizes the sugars, creates acids and fats and lipids, and then that all ends up in the roasted coffee, which when it's ground can actually be extracted into, coffee as a solution, right? So it's 2% of the actual extracted materials from the coffee and 98% water. So that roasting process changes all of those insoluble materials to soluble and allows us as human beings to consume them much more easily.
So it actually ups the absorption rate.
Yeah, so that's why with green coffee you have to create extracts and all this stuff, because they're not soluble in raw coffee form.
Very interesting. Wow. Who knew?
Who knew?
So we'll be right back, folks. Don't go away. We're here with Matt from Pure Intentions Coffee, talking about all the good things it can do for you, aside from just plain old great taste. So we'll be right back. You're listening to the Healthy Home Hour. Are you living your dream? Lots of us aren't, because we don't have a plan. All our dreams need the right plan. At the Charlotte Health Center, get a customized plan to lay down your pain and fatigue and get on your game. Feel the love and skill of Dr. Matt McAleese, chiropractor and founder of the Charlotte Health Center. Align your spine with Dr. Matt. He's got 5 essentials for a victorious life. Experience the energy, the clarity, and creativity of your body and brain when the power's on. The Charlotte Health Center is the largest private and pediatric chiropractic clinic in the QC. Dr. Matt has helped Olympians, celebrities, moms, and kids with exceptional care and concern. Call 704-780-0166. That's 704-780-0166 or charlottehealthcenter.com. Come on, live your dreams.
Novocaine, baby, baby. Novocaine, baby.
We're back. This is Holly, your host, Holly Adams. I'm here with Matt from Pure Intentions Coffee. We're talking about all the great stuff coffee can do for you. And, you mentioned antioxidants and nutrients. And I know there's like vitamin B's in coffee and potassium. And I think there's some manganese as well. And you're saying that the process of roasting actually brings that out such that it's more absorbable.
Yeah, it makes it easier for human beings to consume because, we need something that can be absorbed, right? And in order to do that, we need to create something that we can intake. And so coffee, again, is a solution of 2% coffee material, 98% water. that we take in and then is absorbed through all of our various digestive processes in order to make that solution, because in green coffee form, it's really just plant food, right? So a seed is just, it's a future coffee plant. So when it's a seed, it has all of that stuff locked up inside of it. It has chlorophyll in there. I mean, there's just a bunch of stuff that's locked in insoluble form inside the seed. So we need to take that and make it consumable for us as human beings instead of, the beginnings of a new coffee plant. So the roasting process actually, the first part of the roasting process actually takes all of the moisture, the remaining moisture content, out of the seed itself, and included with that is all the chlorophyll. So that all goes away in the first part. And then once we talk about flavor development, we start talking about caramelizing the sugars, sucrose being the main sugar that's present in coffee seed, caramelizing those sugars and creating some acids and fats and lipids that we can then pull through into the actual brewed coffee.
That's incredible. It's amazing to me that you're actually having a cup of nutrients at the same time that you're waking up and you're feeling smarter and things are coming together better and you're more creative. It really shouldn't be a surprise, but coffee's gotten kind of a bad rap.
Well, again, going back to our earlier points about the industrialization of it, people just don't anymore seem to notice that coffee can be provided in a better form, just like everything else. If you're going to take the time to buy better produce that's more locally produced, do the same with your coffee. The fresher, the better. Coffee should be treated like produce and not like a freeze-dried brick that sits in the back of your cabinet until you're ready to use it. All of those nutrients are dissipating over the course of the coffee's life, and the fresher you can get it, the better it's going to taste and the better it's going to be for you.
What about the roasting process? What is it? Do you ever do tours at your company so people can actually experience that?
Yeah, so generally, our facility right now is pretty small. You don't need a ton of space to churn out a lot of coffee. So it would be a very short tour. But, I'm definitely happy to show. We do that a lot for our wholesale customers. And I believe actually Dominic from Healthy Home Market has been out to see our site.
Cool. He didn't tell me about it.
So, yeah, we do. We have right now a 30-pound capacity roaster in about 1,000 square feet. So, most of our space is reserved for inventory storage. So once we've roasted it and before we've bagged it, or just the big burlap sacks of green coffee, that's 80% of our space right now. But the roasting process in and of itself really just it's applying heat and airflow to the coffee bean itself over the course of about 12 minutes in order to achieve a certain result. So the way that you adjust the temperature and the airflow in the roaster will change the flavor profile of the particular coffee. So I could take the same raw coffee and roast it 3 different ways and change something ever so slightly in those 3 different roasting batches, and it would taste like completely different coffee.
Well, that's pretty interesting that you say that. I'm glad you brought that up, because somewhere I read that you actually do sort of custom roasting.
We do.
For folks.
So it's sort of a combination, right? We have our flavor profiles that we offer to the community, but if somebody were to come to me and say, you know what, I'm really looking for a coffee that's got a lot of chocolate in it, but it doesn't like stick to your teeth like a lot of those darker coffees do. I want it to be a little more clean finishing, but still have some really nice chocolate notes to it. I can roast, depending what I have in my inventory at that time. Obviously, you got to start with coffee that has that potential. But if I have potential to do that, I can take a coffee and create a specific roast profile for that customer and say, okay, this is what you're looking for in order to provide your customers with what they need.
Are there any particular restaurants in town that you're working with and doing that sort of thing?
Yeah, we do that on a regular basis. I don't know if you want me to name specifics, but we do, talk to, every time we get a new customer, we talk to them and say, what is it that your goal is to offer your customers? Mm-hmm. What are you receiving the best remarks for? Or if it's like a brand new restaurant, we'll say, okay, what neighborhood are you in? What are the demographics of this neighborhood generally trying to achieve in their coffee service?
That's interesting. What's it like, 20 somethings to 40? Is that a certain type of profile of person? Are they looking for particular things in coffee that, say, a 65-year-old isn't interested in?
As you might imagine, in some of the more up-and-coming hip neighborhoods around Charlotte, they're looking for more of that artisanal flavor profile, which is a very bright, acidic coffee with a lot of fruit in it and not a lot of really strong body. It's a lot of clean finishing, fruity flavors. Whereas in other parts of town that are more family-oriented, people really want that dark roasted, chocolate, thicker bodied, what most people associate just with that like bold coffee. When people say bold coffee, that's most of the time what we see being successful in more family-oriented parts of town.
So tell me about, you're involved in the coffee crawl here in the Queen City. What are some of the other things that you're doing besides the coffee crawl? Are there other happenings or festivals that most of us wouldn't know about that we need to know so we can come try your coffee and see what's happening?
So we do a lot with beer collaboration, actually. I'm a huge craft beer fan, and Charlotte is a great place for craft beer. So we've partnered, a couple of my friends actually just opened Free Range Brewing over in Noda, and we've partnered with them to not only do a coffee beer, but which is where coffee is physically added to beer during the brewing process to give it that coffee flavor. It's fascinating, and I got to be there while they were brewing the beer, which was a highlight.
That is cool.
Yeah.
And that's got to, I would imagine that would kind of relax you, but pick you up at the same time.
I don't know that it has a ton of caffeine in it just because of the amount of coffee that's added versus the volume of liquid. But it definitely picks up a lot of coffee aroma. It's really cool because you can pick up the pint of beer, and when you're raising it to take a sip, you smell coffee, but then you taste it, and it tastes like a really high-quality beer. So it's just an incredible sensory experience for those that like coffee and beer anyway. But we also actually have the cold brew that we're drinking in a bottle right now.
Yes.
We have put in a keg and put it on tap. So it comes out of the tap just like a beer would, and it has a head just like a beer would, but it's just cold brew coffee.
So somebody can pop in and have
a pint of cold brew coffee.
They can add the milk or not, or however they like to do it. Do you find that people are getting away from sugary additions to coffee?
I think that's an education point. Good coffee, if you're a true fan of coffee, if you actually like the flavor of coffee, if you drink good coffee, you don't need milk or sugar. The reason that people need milk and sugar is because they're drinking stale or poorly produced or lower quality coffee, and they need caffeine, but they need some way of combating those bad flavors. So, again, as we mentioned earlier, sucrose is very prevalent in coffee, and the roasting process caramelizes sugar that's inherent in coffee. So it's already got some built-in sweetness. If you have a high-quality coffee, it should already be inherently sweet when you're drinking it black. And that's actually, so one of the biggest compliments that I ever receive is when I hand somebody a cup that they've never had pure intentions before, and they say, I need some milk and sugar, and I say, just try it real quick, and they try it and say, wow, I can never drink coffee black, but I'm going to drink this black from now on. That's that sends tingles up my spine.
Yeah, I bet that's really shifting someone out of, so many people have diabetes because everybody's putting sugar in everything, aside from all the processed foods and, lack of knowledge about where sugar really is coming from.
Exactly.
And where it's hiding. Exactly. Coffee really isn't just a morning ritual. It sounds like, you're putting it in beer. There's the tastings, there's festivals. It's come out of the breakfast realm.
It really has.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And it's really a lifestyle for lots of people. As many people as there are who are really into beer and they're all about craft beer, there are folks that are really all about coffee.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm wondering, how do you stay inspired? What's the coolest thing you're thinking about in the coffee world right now?
So it's a couple of different things. And first I'll touch, to continue our conversation about the festivals. The thing that really keeps me inspired is knowing that there are still so many people that haven't experienced a great cup of coffee. They think they have, but they really haven't. And it's that education factor. So being out in the community at festivals, we do a lot of fundraisers for, we're doing a Plaza Midwood Library fundraiser this September, where we're providing coffee, and we do a lot of beer festivals around town. The sort of city council organized, fun Fridays for families, those sorts of festivals. We pour coffee out a lot, and just being able to talk to people in our community and say, hey, give this a shot. This is really good stuff. And you don't have to walk into a trendy coffee shop and not have any idea what you're ordering or feel intimidated in order to get great coffee. And that's the whole mission of Pure Intentions, is to provide great coffee with no intimidation for coffee drinkers of all kinds.
Well, it's interesting. It sounds like you're very connected with a lot of the other folks, farmers and producers that are really taking food to a new level, which is, really interests me so much, because that's what we're trying to do at the Healthy Home Market, and trying to provide a space for local folks, local brewers and farmers and growers to have a platform. And
it's a big deal.
It is. It really is, because it's a very different way of looking at food and health.
Well, our culture right now, especially in Charlotte, is undergoing such a revolution that everybody needs a platform. I think everybody deserves a chance, and not to say that just because you're local means you're automatically doing great stuff, but
exactly.
Everybody needs a chance to at least show what they have. And I think that's what's great about Healthy Home Market, is you really provide that platform for folks like myself and other local bakers and manufacturers to have the chance to showcase their goods and services to the community.
We should thank you for that. That is our intention, our pure intention.
Nice.
And we really should do some kind of a festival at our stores and have you, work around you. We'll have you be the star, and then we'll have some other folks, maybe some, Queen City pastries and some different.
I'm in.
Yeah.
We've participated in a couple of your tastings previously. We actually just did a cold brew tasting 2 weeks ago on Saturday. If any of your listeners were out there for that, thanks for your patronage. But they're always so much fun, just getting out there. And I live not too far from that Healthy Home Market, so seeing a lot of familiar faces and hearing people come up and say, "Oh, you're the guys that do that coffee." I'll never drink another cup of anything else. And it's really heartwarming, and it makes our mission worthwhile.
It's great when you're in the spot you're supposed to be in, because a pure intention really is also. It's almost like your purpose that's coming from deep down inside you. So it's inspiring, and I'm so grateful for you being here today to tell us about your company, Pure Intentions, and what you're doing. It's obvious you have a lot of passion about it.
Yeah, very much. And that's really the reason that I'm here today. And it's not, I'll tell anybody out there that's thinking about doing something that they're passionate about, it's not easy, but it's totally worth it. When you're dog tired at the end of the night, knowing that you put all that energy into something that is from your core and from your being, that's what really makes a big difference. And that's what helps you sleep at night and makes you get up again early the next morning to go right back at it. Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing, and it really is the basis of living a healthy life.
It is. When you really care about what you're putting into your body and what your body is doing as a result of it, that's really full circle.
Well, thanks. Thanks so much for being here, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So, folks, get to the Healthy Home Market. Get some Pure Intentions coffee made by Matt Yarmey. You've heard about the details today. This is outstanding coffee. And I can tell you for sure, because I'm drinking it right now, cold brew coffee by Pure Intentions, ready to drink right out of the bottle. It's kind of a sexy bottle, too. I like it a lot. It's a great look. So, folks, until next Sunday, 9 to 10 a.m., I'll see you at the market in Plaza Midwood or in the Community Wellness Center. Check it out at healthyhomemkt.com to see what's up, what's going on. And thanks for being here on Streets 1033, Charlotte's new hip-hop station. Pay it forward and restore yourself by making the healthy choices for you and your family, and enjoy life with the Healthy Home Market. Feel the goodwill and own great health. Check it out at healthyhomemkt.com. That's healthyhomemkt.com for store locations, details, and discounts. Get the best of God's green blue earth at the Healthy Home Market.